There are some kinds of loneliness that people immediately recognize. The loneliness of being physically alone. The loneliness that follows loss. The loneliness that comes from being separated from the people we love. But there is another kind of loneliness that is far less visible. A loneliness that can exist even when millions of people know your name. A loneliness that can follow someone surrounded by cameras, admiration, and endless attention. And perhaps few young people understand that reality better than Princess Leonor. From the outside, her life appears almost magical. She is the Princess of Asturias, the future Queen of Spain, a symbol of continuity and tradition. She attends grand ceremonies, receives standing ovations, represents her country on the international stage, and lives a life many people imagine must be full of excitement and privilege. But appearances rarely tell the whole story, because behind the titles and public admiration lies a reality few people ever stop to consider. The reality that growing up as the future queen can sometimes be an incredibly lonely experience. Unlike most young women her age, Princess Leonor has never had the freedom to simply disappear into the crowd. From an early age, her identity was already decided. Her future had already been written. Long before she understood the meaning of duty, history had chosen a path for her. And that path came with expectations unlike anything most people will ever experience. Every word matters, every gesture matters, every appearance matters, and every decision is watched. For most teenagers, mistakes are private. Embarrassing moments are forgotten. Experiments and uncertainties are simply part of growing up. But for someone destined to become queen, growing up happens under constant observation. And that reality alone can feel isolating. Because when people see a title before they see the person, genuine connections become harder to find. Who sees the young woman behind the crown? Who understands the pressure she carries? Who recognizes the fears she cannot always express publicly? These are questions many royal heirs throughout history have quietly faced. Princess Leonor's parents, King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia, have always tried to give their daughters as normal a childhood as possible. They emphasized education, responsibility, discipline, and family values. They worked hard to shield Leonor and her younger sister, Infanta Sofía, from unnecessary pressures. But even the most loving parents cannot erase the reality of royal life. Because some burdens come with the role itself. And one of those burdens is isolation. There are friendships that ordinary people form naturally. Friendships built on shared experiences, on spontaneity, on freedom. But when your life is constantly in the public eye, trust becomes complicated. Not because people are dishonest, but because fame changes relationships. People become curious. The media becomes interested. Private moments suddenly become public discussions. And maintaining normality becomes increasingly difficult. For Princess Leonor, privacy has never truly been something she could take for granted. From childhood, photographs captured important moments. Headlines followed her growth. Commentators analyzed her speeches, and millions watched her transformation from a little girl into a young woman preparing for one of the most demanding roles in the world. Yet while the world watched, very few people truly understood what that experience felt like. Because admiration does not always eliminate loneliness. In fact, sometimes it can intensify it. People see perfection, but perfection is an impossible standard, and maintaining that image can become exhausting. There is pressure to smile, pressure to remain composed, pressure to represent an entire nation with dignity, and pressure to avoid mistakes, all while navigating the same emotions and uncertainties that every young person experiences. Imagine carrying those expectations every single day. Imagine knowing that one day your responsibilities will affect millions of people. Imagine realizing that your choices are not yours alone, that your life belongs partly to history, that your future has already been defined. Such thoughts would overwhelm anyone. And perhaps that is the lonely reality few people ever talk about. Because privilege and pressure often exist side by side, people tend to focus on royal palaces, beautiful ceremonies, elegant gowns, and historic traditions, but they rarely discuss the emotional costs attached to those privileges, the sacrifices, the responsibilities, the moments when personal desires must take a back seat to duty. Princess Leonor's education itself reflects this reality. Her years at boarding school abroad represented an important chapter in her life. Like many young people, she experienced independence and personal growth. But unlike most students, she carried the knowledge that she would eventually return to a life of extraordinary responsibility. She could enjoy moments of normality, yet she could never completely escape her destiny. And perhaps that awareness creates a unique form of loneliness. Because while others dream about countless possibilities, Leonor's future has always been remarkably clear. She knows what lies ahead. She knows the expectations. She knows the responsibilities waiting for her. And with that knowledge comes enormous pressure. Recent years have brought even greater demands. Military training, official engagements, public speeches, national ceremonies, international attention. Each step represents preparation for the throne. Each responsibility brings her closer to the future that awaits. And with every passing year, the weight becomes greater. Still, what stands out most is not the pressure itself, but the grace with which she appears to handle it. Observers have frequently noted her calm demeanor, her maturity, her discipline, and her dedication to service. These qualities are admirable, but they also remind us of something important. Strength does not mean life is easy. Strength does not mean fear disappears. Strength does not mean loneliness no longer exists. Sometimes, strength simply means continuing forward despite those feelings. History is filled with royal figures who understood this reality. Individuals admired by millions, yet often isolated by the very positions they occupied. Because leadership can be lonely. Responsibility can be lonely. And carrying expectations that few others understand can create a sense of separation from ordinary life. But perhaps loneliness is not always entirely negative. Sometimes it creates empathy. Sometimes it builds resilience. Sometimes it deepens character. And sometimes it teaches people how to find meaning beyond applause and public approval. For Princess Leonor, family has remained one of the strongest sources of support. Her bond with Queen Letizia, her relationship with King Felipe VI, and her connection with Infanta Sofía have often reflected warmth and closeness. Those relationships provide something invaluable. A reminder that beyond the institution, beyond the traditions, beyond the expectations, she is first and foremost a daughter and a sister. And perhaps that grounding has helped her face the challenges of royal life. Because even future queens need love. They need understanding. They need encouragement. And they need moments where they are valued not for their title, but simply for who they are. As she continues preparing for the throne, Princess Leonor faces a future unlike any other. It is a future filled with responsibility, filled with expectations, filled with service, but also filled with opportunities to make a difference, to inspire, to lead, and to leave her own mark on history. Yet behind all of that remains a simple truth. Before she is a queen, before she is a symbol, before she is a public figure, she is a human being, a young woman with dreams, with fears, with hopes, and with moments of uncertainty. And perhaps recognizing that humanity is important, because it reminds us that titles do not erase emotions, crowns do not eliminate struggles, and admiration does not always prevent loneliness. The world may see the ceremonies, the speeches, the photographs, the headlines, but there are quiet moments no camera captures. Moments of reflection, moments of doubt, moments when the weight of the future feels heavier than anyone can imagine. Those are the moments no one talks about. The moments hidden behind smiles. The moments behind palace walls. The moments that reveal the lonely reality of growing up with a destiny already written. Yet despite everything, Princess Leonor continues moving forward. Not because the journey is easy. Not because the burdens are light. But because responsibility demands courage. And perhaps courage is not the absence of loneliness. Perhaps courage is learning to carry that loneliness with dignity. As the world watches the future Queen of Spain step into history, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Behind the crown stands a young woman trying to navigate extraordinary expectations while holding on to something deeply ordinary. The desire to be understood. The desire to belong. And the desire to simply be seen, not as a princess, but as a person. Because sometimes, the loneliest people are not those who stand completely alone, but those who stand before the world, while quietly carrying burdens that no one else can truly see. And perhaps that is the lonely reality of Princess Leonor that no one talks about.